Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the Magic Kingdom, but not the one filled with fairy tales and singing birds. No, tonight we glide past the glossy surface of Disneyland, deep into the shadows of its forgotten corners, where happiness once turned to horror. The air is thick with cotton candy and childhood dreams, but underneath that sweetness, there's something else. A strange stillness. Like the park is holding its breath, like it remembers. You are walking through the entrance gates at night. The crowds are thinning. The lights still glow, but there's something about the way they flicker tonight. You hear the soft jingle of a carousel in the distance, but it's off-tempo like a music box with a broken spring. You're here for the magic, but you're about to hear the other side of the story. And to be honest, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I always love seeing just how far this sleepy little history ride reaches. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step onto Main Street, and for a moment, it feels like nothing can touch you here. There's the nostalgic music, the faint smell of popcorn, the echo of a train whistle from the Disneyland Railroad. But you know the stories. You've heard whispers. Stories that get passed between cast members low and quiet like prayers. Some swear they're just urban legends. But others, they say the screams still echo. And we begin tonight with one of the oldest tales. One of the very first. It's 1964. You're standing near the rivers of America. The air is thick and humid. You hear the distant whistle of the Mark Twain riverboat, but that's not where your eyes are drawn. You're watching two brothers, 15 and 19, sneak past a fence near Tom Sawyer Island. They've hidden on the island past closing time, waiting for the park to shut down. The younger one can't swim, so they've brought an idea that seems smart at the time. Take turns ferrying across the river on an inflatable rubber bag they've found near a maintenance area. You're watching the older brother paddle halfway across, with the younger clinging to his back. The current's stronger than it looks. The older boy starts to struggle, gasping, choking on river water. The little one panics, thrashes, slips off, and disappears under the surface. The older boy never makes it to shore. He drowns trying to save him. The next morning, a body is found floating near the banks, tangled in reeds. The other brother is found downstream, barely alive, clinging to a rock. His eyes are wide and glassy. He doesn't speak for hours. The official record says unauthorized area, but cast members know better. They say sometimes after dark, you can still hear splashing in the river when no one's around. Some nights they swear they see two silhouettes drifting between the rafts. You walk away from the river now, up past Adventureland and toward Fantasyland. The sun's long gone. A chill sets in. You tuck your hands into your hoodie and feel the strange hush that falls over the park after midnight. Most never get to hear it. Most only see Disneyland in its golden light. But this is when the ghosts come out. And the most haunted ride in the entire park. It's not the Haunted Mansion. It's the Matterhorn. You ride it in the day, and it's bumpy, sure, but exhilarating. But at night, when the track shuts down and the cleaning crews go in, there are places even the maintenance teams hate to enter. Because in 1984, a woman named Dolly boarded the bobsleds for what was supposed to be a thrilling ride through the snowy peaks. She never made it to the end. Somehow no one knows quite how she was thrown from the ride during a dip in the track. Her seatbelt was intact. No mechanical failure was recorded. And yet she was found crumpled beneath the tracks in a narrow tunnel called Dolly's Dip by the crews the next morning. Cast members say that tunnel is always colder than the rest. One cleaner refused to go through it alone. Another said she saw something dart past her peripheral vision every time she entered, fast flickering low to the ground like someone crawling. Somewhere up there, amid the fake snow and steel, they say, Dolly never really left. You leave the mountain behind. The lights of Tomorrowland buzz to life just ahead, flickering like a dying star. The People Mover glides above your head. Well, it used to. Now it's empty track, just concrete and rust. But back in 1967, it was sleek, futuristic, and full of life. Until the night a teenager decided to hop from one moving car to another. You see him in your mind's eye, barefoot, young, laughing. He's dared by friends a little tipsy, maybe, to leap between cars. But he miscalculates. His foot slips, he falls. He's dragged, screaming, pulled under the ride's weight, his body twisting around the track as the cars continue oblivious. They say he was torn apart, that pieces had to be collected, that the blood seeped into the cracks so deep they had to repave a section. The People Mover never recovered from its history, the deaths, the rumors. It was shut down in 1995. The track remains a relic in the sky. If you stare up too long, they say you might see someone standing on it, watching you, just before disappearing around a corner that no longer exists. You find yourself back at the hub now. That statue of Walt and Mickey holding hands, a symbol of innocence, of dreams. But you can't help noticing the shadows at their feet tonight. They're longer than usual, almost like they're pointing somewhere, leading you on. You follow the shadows, past the partner statue, past the carousel, whose horses now stand eerily still. You notice the park's soundtrack has gone quiet. No music, just the soft crunch of your shoes on the pavement. You keep moving deeper into Fantasyland, but it's like the air itself is changing, getting heavier, slower, like you're being watched. The next story you walk into didn't make the headlines for days. Disneyland has a way of controlling what the world sees. But the cast members, they remember. It happened on the Columbia. Not the riverboat, but the full-rigged sailing ship that glides along the rivers of America. It's Christmas Eve, 1998. You're standing on the dock with your family. You're excited, cold fingers wrapped around a cup of hot cocoa. A cannon fires a festive salute to the crowd. The crew is preparing to dock. But something's wrong. A cleat, one of those thick metal hooks used to tie up ships, snaps. It whips through the air like a blade. It doesn't just hit someone. It slashes. It tears through a man's head like a hot knife through paper. Blood hits your coat. Screams echo against the water. You can't move. The chaos is frozen in time. The man collapses, his wife and child standing inches away. The cast members rush in, but it's too late. He dies there, surrounded by lights and garlands with jingle bells still playing on a loop in the background. After that, they quietly changed the docking procedure, reinforced the cables. But ask anyone who works near the dock, and they'll tell you they don't stand close anymore. Not even when it's empty. Especially not then. You back away, breath catching in your throat. You cut through New Orleans Square past the French Market. A faint jazz tune floats through the air, but it's warbled, like it's coming through water. The haunted mansion looms ahead, but not yet. You're being pulled in another direction, You're heading toward the monorail. The monorail feels safe, elevated, clean. It glides silently above the park like a futuristic guardian. But it's also one of the most efficient and terrifying ways to die in the park. It's 1966, still early in the park's history. You see a young man, 19 years old, try to sneak into Disneyland. He's not trying to rob it or vandalize it. He just wants to be inside after hours. He climbs 2 fences, ignores warning signs, and makes it all the way to the monorail track. And then he sees it. The train. It's coming fast. He panics. He runs along the narrow beam, trying to outrun it, trying to find a place to jump. But there is nowhere to go. He's struck. The sound is horrific metal meeting bone, skin, and muscle. The train doesn't stop immediately. It grinds over him. Security finds what's left scattered across the track like discarded Halloween decorations. And the monorail. It kept running for years. They repainted the cars, replaced the lights. But no matter what they changed, guests sometimes report seeing a shadowy figure pacing along the beam. It's always running, always turning to look over its shoulder. You shudder. The thought of being up there trapped on that narrow strip of track suddenly feels like a nightmare you can't wake from. And yet, you keep walking. You pass by It's a Small World. It should feel cheerful. The lights twinkle. The facade is still beautiful. But you remember the stories, the way the animatronics sometimes keep moving after power cuts, the way cast members hear the song playing faintly even when the ride is shut off completely. One janitor reported cleaning near the exit tunnel late one night. He said he turned off the music and the lights as usual. But as he walked past the final bend, he swore he heard giggling, high-pitched, echoing, and wrong. He turned to see a small figure standing in one of the boats. Just standing, motionless. Then the figure vanished. They checked the cameras. Nothing. But he never worked alone again. And neither would you. You cut through Fantasyland and return to Tomorrowland. Your heart is still racing. You pass the old Mission to Mars area, now transformed into something sleek and modern. But you remember what used to be there and what happened inside. It was supposed to be a simulation, a seated show experience that took guests on a virtual trip to outer space. But one woman took it too far. In the early 1970s, a middle-aged guest was found slumped in her seat after the show ended. At first, cast members thought she was asleep, but when they shook her shoulder, she didn't move. No pulse, no breath, dead. But here's the thing, the coroner estimated she'd been dead for hours. She likely passed away during the show's earlier cycles, and no one noticed. She'd sat through multiple shows surrounded by strangers unmoving. Everyone assumed she was just really into it or just really tired. Imagine that. Dying quietly, surrounded by laughter, motion noise, and no one realizing. No one looking closely enough. Just a body on a bench mistaken for a mannequin in a crowd of moving people. And when they removed her, the cast member assigned to the task swore they saw her eyes open just before they zipped the body bag. They chalked it up to nerves. But he quit 2 days later. You reach the edge of the park now. The gates to the backstage areas are locked tight, but you can sense the energy behind them. The cast-only zones, the underground tunnels, the security control rooms where they've seen things they'll never talk about publicly. They know. All of them. They whisper the stories between costume changes and coffee breaks. They know which rides make your skin crawl for a reason. They know the places where the air suddenly drops in temperature, where the radios start crackling, where they feel something brushing past them even though they're alone. You stand there for a moment, the entire park spread behind you. You think about how many feet have walked these paths, how many dreams were made here, and how many nightmares were born in the shadows. And the night's not over. There's still the Matterhorn's other secret. There's Space Mountain. There's the Haunted Mansion's real ghosts. There's the castle and what they buried underneath it. There are the ashes, the rituals, the places where guests left more than just memories. And you keep walking. You drift back toward the center of the park, now following the faint scent of churros and stale popcorn. The crowds are long gone. The only footsteps echoing now are yours. Or at least, you hope they're yours. Because every so often you hear a second set. Softer, out of sync. As though someone is just a few steps behind, always one breath away from being seen. But when you glance back, nothing. Your feet take you toward the castle. Not because you want to, but because something draws you there. You expect it to feel magical, royal. Instead, it feels hollow. You've passed through Sleeping Beauty's castle dozens of times during the day, but this is the first time you've really felt it. The stones seem colder, the air tighter, and under your skin you feel that crawling sensation again, like the walls are watching. You've heard the rumors, that there's something buried beneath the castle, that it's not just reinforced concrete and secret tunnels, that someone's ashes were spread down there years ago and ever since the energy shifted. And then, of course, there are the ashes everywhere else. You wouldn't think of Disneyland as a final resting place, but it happens more often than anyone wants to admit. Families bring the cremated remains of their loved ones and scatter them quietly, discreetly along their favorite rides. Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion. It's common enough that Disney has an internal protocol, a special code word, HEPA cleanup. They don't advertise it, of course, but ask a longtime cast member and they'll nod grimly. They'll tell you about the vacuum systems, the hazmat suits, the quiet escorts out of the park. One woman was caught dumping ashes into the water during Pirates right over the skeleton bed scene. Another emptied a velvet pouch in the Haunted Mansion's seance room. They say the ashes clung to the table, that they seemed to move on their own, that the ride broke down 5 times that day, and each time it stopped at the exact same spot. You walk faster. The castle gates lead you out toward Fantasyland again. You see King Arthur's carousel in the distance. It should be beautiful, a circle of polished horses beneath a crown of light. But it's still, silent. You swear one of the horses turns slightly in its post as you pass. You don't look twice. Instead, you veer left toward the ride that was once the most cheerful of all the Skyway. It's gone now, dismantled in the late 90s, but the supports still stand if you know where to look. Thick beams of rusted steel swallowed by trees. The Skyway used to carry guests above the park from Tomorrowland to Fantasyland, gliding through the air in colorful gondolas. But in 1994, something went wrong. A man climbed out of one of the gondolas mid-ride. Why, no one knows. Some say he wanted a better view. Others say he meant to fall. He slipped, fell over 20 feet, crashed through a tree, hit a rooftop, then landed hard on the pavement below. He survived for a moment. Paramedics rushed in, but the injuries were catastrophic. He died before they could even move him. No safety bar malfunction, no structural issue. Just one decision, one misstep. and everything ended. And even though the ride is gone, guests still report strange feelings near the old supports. A sense of dizziness, of falling. Some say they feel phantom wind pressing against their face, wind that shouldn't be there. You don't stay long. You keep walking back toward the heart of Tomorrowland. Space Mountain looms ahead, its jagged white silhouette, like a broken crown against the night sky. You hear the soft hum of electricity, the low thrum of machinery cooling down. But even dormant, the building pulses with energy. You walk past the entrance now, chained shut for the night. You stop just before the archway. The air is colder here, sharper. It smells faintly metallic, like ozone after a lightning storm. Space Mountain has claimed lives, too. In 1979, a woman boarded the ride like thousands do each day. Midway through the track, she complained of a headache, sharp, sudden, blinding pain. By the time the ride ended, she was unconscious. She never woke up. The cause was later ruled an aneurysm, something spontaneous, unrelated to the ride itself. But the timing was too strange, too clean. She collapsed right after a sharp turn, right where the G-forces peaked. Some speculate the motion triggered it. Others say she was marked. And yet that's not the part that unsettles people most. It's what came later. After the ride reopened, cast members began noticing strange shadows in the loading bay. A dark figure at the corner of their vision, always standing just past the control panel, silent. When they turned to speak, no one was there. Some call him Mr. One Way. They say he appears in line, usually alone. He talks to guests, jokes, smiles. But when the ride ends, there's always an empty seat where he should have been. And the security footage, it glitches. Every time. You take a step back, away from the entrance. You want to believe it's just stories. Park myths. But your spine doesn't lie. Your nerves don't lie. You're cold now. Really cold. So you press on. Down the quiet pathways past the now empty submarine lagoon. Even the water looks dark and soupy. You remember hearing something once about a child who slipped into the lagoon during the early years. He was never named. The story was never confirmed. But cast members remember. They say divers had to search for hours, and that when they found him, he was smiling. They drained the lagoon later for renovation. No one talks about what else they found. You walk faster. The glow of the lights changes around you. You're circling back toward the western edge of the park now. Frontierland, where the old wooden planks creak under your feet, where Big Thunder Mountain waits. The mountain has its secrets, too, but you'll get there soon. First, you pause at the Golden Horseshoe Saloon. It looks cheerful, classic. But years ago, a cast member collapsed during a performance backstage, just behind the curtain. The guests never knew. The show kept going. She died there just feet from the laughter and applause. Her co-workers said the curtain rustled for hours after, even with no breeze and with no prum. Even now, they say it never stays still. You turn from the saloon and face the mountain. You feel the ground hum beneath your feet. The memory of screeching tracks and sudden silence. You're getting closer to the ride that shook the entire park. But not yet. The night isn't done with you. Not even close. You stare at Big Thunder Mountain, and you swear you can hear it breathing. Not the cheerful whistles and clacks from the ride's heyday, but something deeper. A mechanical exhale from the earth itself. The tracks are still. The cavern mouths yawn open like sleeping beasts. You step forward anyway. The year is 2003. Summer. You're in line for the wildest ride in the wilderness. The sun is bright, the rocks are painted gold, and everything feels like a Western cartoon come to life. But this day will leave a stain on the park that no one could scrub clean. A train full of guests begins its usual journey up the incline, down the drops, around the curves. But something's wrong. The ride's been giving off weird noises all week. The maintenance logs later examined show missed inspections, loose bolts, friction, warnings ignored. Then it happens. A piece of the front train dislodges. The axle assembly fails. One of the cars lifts off the track, slams into the roof of the tunnel ahead, and the rest of the train folds like an accordion. The front passenger, Marcelo Torres, is crushed. His chest is pinned against the lap bar, his ribs shattered. He's pronounced dead within minutes. 10 others are injured. Screams fill the mountain's hollow belly, bouncing off fake rock and metal beams like a grotesque echo chamber. The ride is shut down for months. OSHA steps in. Investigations unravel layers of mismanagement, of cost-cutting, of quiet warnings swept under the tracks. Disneyland is fined. The ride is modified. But even now, long after its reopening, some riders say they feel the weight of something in that tunnel. Some swear they hear whispering during the first incline. A voice that says, "Hold on." Not from the speakers, not from the cast members, just from the mountain itself. You take a step back. Your hands graze the railings. They're cold. Colder than they should be under the warm California night. The silence that hangs around Big Thunder Mountain isn't empty. It's dense, charged, like the ride remembers. You follow the path away from the mountain past the rivers of America again, past the Mark Twain riverboat, and back to the edge of New Orleans Square. You're pulled toward the haunted mansion now, not because you want to be, but because you have to be. It's never just a ride. The mansion was designed as a showpiece, a technological marvel, and an aesthetic one too, the contrast of a pristine southern manor with the promise of terror within. But somewhere along the way, something slipped through, something real. The stories begin almost immediately after it opened in 1969. A woman spreads her son's ashes inside the mansion, against park rules, but determined. She believed the spirits would watch over him, that he'd never be alone, that he'd become one of them. Guests begin reporting odd sensations in the seance room. A chill breeze across their ankles. A child's laughter when no children are around. One woman hears a voice whisper her name 3 times while passing the endless hallway. She leaves in tears. Won't speak of it. But it's not just the boy. Over the decades, cast members have seen figures in the loading area. Shadowy outlines that vanish when approached. One former host claims she saw a man in a tuxedo riding alone after hours. Security footage confirmed no one had entered. And then there's the infamous crying lady. Multiple guests over the years have seen a woman dressed in black sitting near the exit tunnel. She weeps quietly, face covered, always alone. When approached, she disappears, every single time. You ride the haunted mansion in the daytime, and it's fun. Campy, a little spooky. But at night when the crowds are gone, and the lights dim to their maintenance glow, it becomes something else. Something the Imagineers didn't design. You move past the mansion now. Slowly. The air thickens, smells faintly of dust and roses. You could swear the lanterns are dimmer here. Or maybe they're just tired like everything else in the park after dark. You cross into Adventureland. The jungle cruise boats are moored silent in their docks. The animatronic animals stare blankly across the dark water. You glance toward the trees, wondering if something is watching from behind the vines. But it's the Indiana Jones adventure that waits ahead, and it's been waiting a long time. When the ride opened in 1995, it was revolutionary. An unpredictable track shifting rooms, sudden drops. A thrill unlike anything else. But with ambition came risk. That same year, just 2 months after opening, a 23-year-old man climbed into the Jeep-like vehicle. He seemed healthy, happy. But partway through the ride, something went wrong. He exited pale, shaking, complained of numbness. Hours later, he collapsed. A brain hemorrhage. He died before morning. Disney claimed the hemorrhage wasn't caused by the ride, but the lawsuit alleged otherwise. The motion, the sudden forces, the jostling, it all lined up too neatly, too tragically. And then the anomalies began. Guests began reporting odd glitches, flickering lights in one specific section, even after full rewiring. One technician claimed the ride would occasionally lock up for no reason, always at the same curve where the young man had reported pain. Cast members sometimes feel hands on their shoulders in that room. A heavy weight, as if someone is trying to warn them or hold them back. You pass the ride's crumbling temple facade and feel a sudden wave of nausea. Just for a moment. Then it's gone. You want to leave, but you don't. Because the park isn't done with you yet. You head back toward Main Street. The lights are still on. The windows still glowing. The mannequins in the Emporium's windows still smiling in their stiff, eternal poses. But the shops are empty now. Closed. The laughter's gone. Main Street at night is a different creature. It's not a welcoming boulevard. It's a corridor of memories, some good, some not, and some trapped between. They say that Walt Disney himself never really left. The apartment above the firehouse still has a lamp in the window. It's always on. A tribute. A reminder. But in the early days, cast members would turn it off at closing, only to find it lit again minutes later. No one inside. No timers. No tricks. One janitor reported seeing the curtain shift. Another swears he heard footsteps overhead. Eventually, they stopped turning it off. Let it burn. Let him stay. Because maybe some dreams never die. Maybe some never can. You stop in front of the firehouse. The glow from the window above flickers slightly. You don't blink. Not this time. You're beginning to understand. This isn't a haunted house you can walk out of. This isn't a single ride or a single night. This is Disneyland after dark. And it's only halfway over. You turn away from the firehouse, but that faint flicker of light in the window stays with you. It's like an ember behind your eyes, warm but heavy. You wonder if Walt really is watching. And if so, what does he see now? The smiles, the ghosts, the pieces of people left behind. You drift back through the heart of the park, and suddenly your feet slow unprompted. You're not sure why until you realize where you're heading. The place that should feel safest, Town Square, the very front of the park, where you first walked in, the place where most stories begin. But some stories don't wait until the end to take something from you. Some start at the gates. It's 1981. You see a young girl 6 years old chasing after her balloon. Her father leans down to tie her shoelaces. Just an ordinary moment. Just one breath. She steps off the curb and into the path of the tram. Back then, the parking lot trams ran just past the ticket booths. The girl disappears beneath the wheels before anyone can react. The father screams. The tram halts. Chaos floods the entryway. But it's already too late. Later that night, cast members reported hearing footsteps running along that same curb, bare feet. No one seen. Just the sound. Just the echo. Others say the emergency lights would flicker for hours after closing on the anniversary of her death. Always the same spot. Disney quietly altered the tram routes the following year. But the stories didn't stop. You keep moving. Back past the gardens, past the statue again. Your eyes linger on Mickey's outstretched hand. It points now not toward the castle, but slightly off-center. Toward the edge of the hub, toward something forgotten. You follow. Your feet take you to a space that used to be full of life, the carousel of progress. Long gone now, but its bones were repurposed. You remember the circular theater, the rotating stages, the animatronic families. It was optimistic, forward-looking, the promise of a better tomorrow. But there's a reason people used to fear falling asleep during the show. There were no traditional exits. Once you entered a scene, you had to wait for the carousel to rotate to the next. No early way out. If something happened, you were stuck. And something did happen. In 1974, an 18-year-old cast member, Debbie, was working backstage. She stepped between the moving walls too early. The rotating platform pinned her against the divider. It crushed her pelvis, snapped her legs. She screamed for help, but the music kept playing. A great, big, beautiful tomorrow. By the time they stopped the mechanism, it was too late. She bled out beneath the artificial lights, surrounded by smiling robots frozen mid-song. The ride never fully recovered. It was eventually shut down, moved to Florida. But the space remained. And some say at night they still hear the song playing, even though no speakers remain. You take a breath, suddenly aware of how dry your mouth feels. You want to leave. But you keep walking. Because now you're thinking about Tomorrowland again. Not the rides, not the buzz and whir of sleek technology, but the parts that people forget. The empty exhibit spaces, the abandoned tracks, the buried mistakes. There used to be a ride called America Sings, a bizarre animatronic musical show that replaced Carousel of Progress in the same rotating theater. And only 1 week into its operation, the building claimed another life. Debbie's wasn't the last. In 1974, just days after opening, another young woman, also a cast member, was crushed in the exact same rotating wall. History repeating, tragedy echoing. Almost as if the building demanded a toll to function. They added safety lights after that. Emergency stops. But the energy shifted. Workers said the ride began to feel off. The animatronics moved a beat too slow. The soundtrack warped unexpectedly. One janitor claimed the backstage hallway lights would flicker in rhythmic pulses like a slow heartbeat whenever he passed the spot where she died. They said she haunted it, not with malice, but with presence, with pain. Eventually, the ride shut down. The stage was dismantled, the characters packed away. But even now, the rotating platform still exists. Sealed behind walls, forgotten by most. Except you. You walk past where it used to be, your footsteps echoing louder now. Too loud. You're not sure it's the acoustics. You head toward the Tomorrowland terrace. It's empty. The stage retracted. But you remember hearing something once. That late-night performers' bands doing sound checks would sometimes hear applause. Loud, vigorous, coming from nowhere, echoing from under the stage. No audience in sight. They'd leave in silence. Some didn't return. Disney blamed acoustics, echoes, vents. But the truth is always softer than the lie. Easier to live with, easier to sell. You're drifting now. Back through the twisting arteries of the park. Down tight corridors between lands. Past popcorn stands that smell just a little too sweet. Past trash cans that rattle even when no wind blows. You're heading toward the outer edge of Fantasyland again. Toward the storybook land canal boats. It's a peaceful ride. Miniature villages, fairy tale scenes, calm waters. But there's a story here too. A woman in the late 80s, visiting from overseas. She stepped out of the boat too early, thought the ride was over, slipped, fell between the dock and the boat. The mechanics kept running. She was crushed. The park settled quietly, changed the boat protocol, installed better signage. But some nights cast members say the boats still jerk suddenly, as if something is grabbing them, pulling from below. No bodies ever recovered from the water officially. But the bottom of the canal is dark, murky, the kind of place where forgotten things sink and settle, like grief, like guilt, like ghosts. You cross the bridge now, your body heavy as if the stories themselves are weighing you down. You wonder how many deaths you've walked through, how many people breathed their last surrounded by laughter and bright lights. And you wonder how many are still here. Not trapped, maybe, just lingering. Not wanting to leave the happiest place on earth. Or maybe not able to. You pause. The wind brushes your cheek like a hand. Gentle. Cold. You're not alone. But you've known that for a while now, haven't you? You don't turn around. There's no need. Whatever's behind you, it's not meant to be seen. Not fully. The air shifts again, and the smell of the canal water fades, replaced by something cleaner, cooler, faintly metallic, almost sterile. You know where you're headed even before the architecture changes around you. Tomorrowland. Again. There's something about this place. You keep coming back to it like the park itself is nudging you, asking you to see something you missed the first time. You step into the Space Mountain concourse once more. The lights overhead hum softly. Too softly. Like they're dimming themselves, trying not to disturb something. You glance toward the ride's entrance. Still closed. But the building vibrates. Not visibly, but somewhere deep beneath your feet. You're not sure what wakes first, your memory or your fear. There was a girl, wasn't there? You don't remember her name. No one does. But the cast members call her the Red Flash. She died on the ride. Or maybe she didn't. That's the thing. There's no official record, no police report, just stories. So many stories. One version says she stood up mid-ride and was thrown. Another says her seatbelt failed. One says she was on a blind date left alone in the dark tunnel, and when the ride came back, her seat was empty. The thing is, guests still report seeing her. A flash of red in the pitch-black dome. just for a second, then gone. Technicians once paused the ride late at night, trying to reset a jammed brake system. When the lights came up, there was a smear of red on one of the seats. No one had ridden that car all day. They wiped it off. It came back the next night. You step back from the entrance. You don't need to go inside. You've already gone far enough. You cut across to the Astro Orbiter, now silent. The rockets rest like dormant wasps, and beyond that you see the skeletal remains of what once was the rocket rods. A failed experiment. Fast, jarring, dangerous. It didn't last long, but even short-lived rides can leave long-lasting scars. One night during testing, a mechanic stayed late to monitor track vibrations. He was cautious, double-checking all readings, standing at a safe distance. But something went wrong. A surge in the braking system. A misfire. The vehicle jerked, jumped the track ever so slightly. The mechanic was hit. Thrown back against a support beam. He survived, but barely. Shattered pelvis, broken ribs, collapsed lung. He never walked again. They say he refused the settlement, refused the hush money, said he didn't want revenge, just acknowledgement. But he never got it. So now late at night, ride operators swear they see someone watching from the old platform, standing still, hands in pockets, a figure limping slightly, only visible from the corner of your eye, then gone. You walk faster now, heading down the corridor that used to house the Innovations building. It's been repurposed so many times, Carousel of Progress America sings Star Wars Launch Bay. The building can't hold a single identity. It always shifts, always mutates, like it's trying to forget. But you haven't forgotten. You remember what happened behind those walls. You remember Debbie. You remember the rotation. And now you remember the laughter. Because there was another story, wasn't there? A little boy. Not a cast member. Just a guest. Young. Maybe 5. He wandered off from his parents inside Innovations. Slipped through a service door. Ended up in the backstage corridors. He was found hours later hiding in the old animatronic control room. Safe, but shaking. Clutching his arms. Whispering. They talk to each other when it's dark, he said. He wouldn't say what else he saw. Only that the characters weren't off. They were waiting. Disney called it a security oversight, reassured the public. But behind the scenes, they doubled the locks, disabled the backup power relays in that room. Just in case. You slip out of Tomorrowland finally and make your way back into the curve of the park, toward Critter Country. The trail narrows, the lights thin. You can hear the distant rush of Splash Mountain's water, even though the ride is closed. That ride, too, has its story. The guest who tried to climb out mid-ride. The sudden stop. The slip. The impact. He cracked his head on the rockwork near the big drop. The water ran red that day. The ride kept going. Other guests didn't even know anything had happened. That's the thing about Disneyland. When tragedy strikes, the park doesn't pause. The music keeps playing. The animatronics keep dancing. But that's not what haunts you most. It's the smell. Every time you walk past the queue, even now, you swear you catch a whiff of copper. Not the chlorine-treated water. Not the mildew of damp concrete. Blood. The cast members deny it. Say it's your imagination. Say it's just the machinery. But late at night, they keep the doors to the ride sealed tight. Not for maintenance, for something else. You step away from the closed gate and round the corner into the quiet of the Winnie the Pooh area. It's almost too sweet. The music is soft, childlike, off-key. The colors are too bright. And in that contrast, something curdles. It was once the location of the Country Bear Jamboree. Before that, a different plan entirely. But buried beneath this land is something older. The blueprints don't match. Some walkways go nowhere. Maintenance crews report finding sealed doors where no doors should exist. One even claimed to open a panel and find a hollow space filled with fog. No pipes, no wiring, just emptiness. He quit the next day. You pause beside a honeypot statue. The music stops, just for a second, then resumes. You're not sure you imagined it. The sky above is darker now. No stars. The clouds have moved in thick and low. The trees sway gently, though there's no wind. You realize you haven't seen another person in a while. Not a guest, not a cast member, not even a janitor. You're alone. At least you're supposed to be. But that's the thing about Disneyland at night. You're never really alone. Not here. Not now. You tell yourself that you're imagining things. The silence. The flickering lights. The feeling that the trees themselves are leaning in. But denial only works in daylight. At night, here in the forgotten corners of Disneyland, your senses don't lie. You walk back through the bend of Critter Country, heading toward the edge where the railroad tracks curve behind the berm. Few guests wander here at night, and fewer still know what lies beyond the trees. You do now. Because just past those tracks was once the site of the Indian village, long before Splash Mountain, before New Orleans Square, before pirates. And there, in the early days of the park, a fire broke out. It wasn't in the news. No pictures, just a footnote in an internal memo. But a costumed performer was trapped. One of the native dancers brought in as part of the early cultural displays. His headdress caught. The wind took the flames. The teepees ignited. He screamed, they say. But no one heard him over the music. Not until it was too late. By the time the fire was extinguished, he was gone. No memorial, no plaque, just silence. But when the wind cuts through this part of the park just right, some cast members say they hear drums. Not the parade kind, slow, measured, mourning. And one night during fireworks testing, a technician swore he saw someone in full headdress standing in the trees, watching, motionless. He called out. No answer. The figure stepped back into the woods. They searched, found nothing. No footprints. No costume logged out. No one missing. You cross the railroad tracks and return to New Orleans Square, which now feels colder than it did before. Maybe it's the proximity to the river. Well, maybe it's something else. You stop in front of Pirates of the Caribbean. It's quiet. Too quiet. You've heard the stories. Everyone has. The skeletons. When the ride first opened in 1967, Imagineers wanted authenticity. Plastic bones looked fake, so they used real human skeletons on loan from UCLA. Skulls, rib cages, spines, set in place with resin posed above piles of treasure. Eventually, the university asked for them back. Most were returned, replaced with replicas. but not all. Ask any seasoned cast member. They'll tell you there are still real bones in there. Specifically, the skull embedded in the headboard of the bed in the treasure room. The one with the jewels. The one that always seems just a little too detailed. And there's more. In the early 2000s, the ride shut down unexpectedly during operating hours. Not for technical failure, but because a guest jumped out. A man in his 40s. Quiet. Seemed normal. Then mid-ride, he stepped off the boat into the shallow water and walked into the darkness. Vanished. They stopped the ride, turned on the lights, searched every inch. Nothing. Not for an hour. Not for two. Finally, they found him sitting cross-legged behind a prop crate near the burning town scene. Soaking wet. Staring straight ahead. Whispering something. It wasn't fake, that's all he said. Again and again. It wasn't fake. Security escorted him out. He wasn't arrested, just removed. Some say he'd lost his mind. Others say he'd found something. You keep walking past Club 33's hidden door, past the empty balconies toward the loading bay of pirates. You can almost hear the splash of water as boats return. Almost. But not tonight. Tonight, the bay is still. And then you hear it. A soft laugh. High-pitched. Female. It comes from behind you. You spin around, nothing. Just the closed iron gate and the faint scent of brine and machinery. But your skin prickles. Your body knows what your eyes won't admit. You walk faster. Toward the exit tunnel. Out. Back into the open air. You don't stop until you're nearly in the middle of Frontierland again. Breathing heavy. Trying to shake the memory of that laugh. And it's here amid the wooden storefronts and lantern-lit facades that you remember another story. One almost no one talks about. The horses. Disneyland used to use real horses more frequently, especially along Main Street and in the parades. They were trained docile, but even the gentlest animal can panic. In the 1970s, during an early morning parade rehearsal, a Clydesdale broke free. Something startled it. A sound. A shadow. No one knows. It charged hooves pounding the pavement, eyes wide with terror. A custodian was in its path. He tried to move. Too late. The impact shattered his skull. He died before anyone reached him. And the horse, it stopped 5 feet later, trembling, refusing to move. The incident was buried quickly. The horse retired. But even now, when horses walk that route during daytime parades, some refuse to step into that spot. They shy, pause, glance sideways, like they sense something their trainers don't, like they remember. You move on toward the shooting gallery, the fake guns, the blinking targets. During the day, it's harmless fun. At night, the stillness feels threatening. There's a rumor that one of the original rifles wasn't fake, that it somehow ended up with a real firing pin, that someone was injured, maybe even died. The official record doesn't say, but the gallery closed for weeks in the late 60s. Quietly. No explanation. When it reopened, the entire mechanism had been replaced. You don't linger. You cut through the shortcut path behind Big Thunder Trail, where the lanterns get sparse and the shadows stretch longer. This trail was supposed to be for overflow traffic, but at night, it feels like a tunnel. You remember hearing about a security guard who refused to patrol this trail alone, said his flashlight would always flicker out in the same place. said his radio would crackle not with static, but with a voice. Always the same phrase, "Don't go back." And now your radio, if you had one, would be crackling too, because you're heading toward galaxy's edge, new land, new stories, but already the darkness has found its way in. You step into Batu, and the temperature shifts again. The lights are brighter here, more modern, but the shadows still find their corners, still cling to the edges. And there's something waiting for you, at the edge of the Falcon, at the bottom of the stairs. Something that hasn't been discovered yet. But you will, because this story is far from over. You step fully into galaxy's edge, but something's wrong. It's too quiet. Even in this newer part of the park, there should be ambient sounds. Ship engines rumbling, distant droid chatter, the whisper of music winding through the black spires. But right now, it's silent. And it makes everything feel artificial. Like a perfect stage waiting for the wrong scene. The Millennium Falcon rests before you. Massive, imposing. The kind of thing that during the day makes your heart race with excitement. But here, in the stillness, it looks less like a starship and more like a tomb. Cold metal, burned in shadows. You take a slow breath and step closer. They say no one has died in galaxy's edge. Not officially, not yet. But death doesn't care about theming. You remember a story, one that never made the blogs. That slipped past the headlines. A construction worker, Miguel, was part of the original team that helped bring Batu to life. Long nights, endless revisions, deadlines pushed beyond safety. One evening during a late shift, Miguel went missing. They found his tool belt first, then his glove, then nothing. He turned up hours later in a crawl space beneath the Falcon ride structure, pale, covered in dust, eyes wide open. But he didn't remember how he got there. He said he'd heard whispering, faint, mechanical. Not voices exactly. Something deeper. A humming that got louder the farther he crawled. When he reached a dead end, he blacked out. No one believed him. They ran tests, found nothing wrong. But he never came back. And every so often, maintenance crews still hear that humming when they go under the building. Equipment malfunctions. Lights flicker. And one cast member even claimed their flashlight turned off and then turned on again, pointed straight at them, as if something else had taken hold. You step away from the Falcon now. You don't want to know what's beneath it. Not really. You wind through the winding alleys of Batu, past the market stalls and closed hangars. Every shadow feels a little too long. Every door feels a little too slightly ajar. You pass the entrance to Rise of the Resistance and pause. The ride is monumental, complex, and massive, multi-layered with huge show spaces and real drop sequences, and that size comes at a cost. During testing, a technician was trapped between the shuttle doors and the ride's rotating track base. It wasn't fatal, not technically, but his arm was crushed, ruined. Emergency surgery couldn't save it. He said the platform moved without warning. Disney said it was operator error. But several other techs who rotated through the attraction later said they sometimes saw movement on the track when no one was riding. Just a flicker. Just a shadow crossing between props. When they checked the sensors, nothing appeared. But the shadow always passed in the same spot, just where the technician had fallen. You walk faster now past the edge of the land, where the architecture fades into the rocks. You think of all the things Disney builds underground. Storage rooms, power corridors, hidden offices, and tunnels. You wonder if there's more to the land than guests will ever see. Places that never made it onto the map. Locked gates, unmarked doors. You decide not to find out. You slip out of Galaxy's Edge and back into the older part of the park, moving through the trail behind Big Thunder. It's darker now, heavier. The stories are catching up with you, layering themselves over each other like fog. You head toward the railroad, not to ride it, just to be near it. The comforting circle around the park, the promise of return. But even the train has its ghosts. It was once a haven, slow, reliable. But in the 1960s, an engineer miscalculated the boiler pressure on engine number 1, the CK Holiday. The pressure built too high. The release valve didn't function in time. There was no explosion, not a dramatic one, just a hiss, a scream, and then silence. He was found on the floor of the cab, skin blistered, alive for a few hours, but not for long. After that, the engine ran colder, rougher. Conductors would complain of gears sticking, brake pads grinding. One even said he heard music playing from inside the tender. Banjo music. But the train didn't have a speaker. The engine was pulled from regular service. You feel the track vibrating slightly. No train tonight, just memory. You move again, this time toward Toontown. You don't expect to find anything here. It's for children. Painted hills and bouncing architecture. How could something dark live here? But darkness doesn't care where it sleeps. In 2000, a maintenance worker died during an after-hours inspection of Roger Rabbit's car Toon Spin. His body was discovered pinned between a ride vehicle and the track wall. He had been checking the mechanism alone. No one noticed he was missing until morning. His family filed suit. Disney settled quietly. Guests who ride the attraction today never know, but cast members do. They say the ride vehicles sometimes stop for no reason in that section. That sensor's glitch. One worker said they found the same car stopped 3 nights in a row, lights flickering, brakes half engaged. And once, just once, a guest reported seeing someone standing in the tunnel behind the car. But when they turned to look again, the figure was gone. You don't enter the ride. You just stand outside, listening, waiting. The neon lights hum above you, and for a moment you think you hear metal scraping against metal. But it's just your imagination. Isn't it? You step away, turning back toward the main path. You pass the gag factory, the play fountains, the painted brick walls that look too cheerful now. You walk faster. Toontown never felt right after dark. You exit back into Fantasyland, back under the shadow of the Matterhorn. And you realize something. You've been circling it this whole time. The mountain. Again and again. The deaths, the sightings, the impossible cold, and something else. You can't explain it. But it's like the mountain is pulling everything in. Like all the stories, all the tragedy, all the energy, the grief, the panic, the denial, it all spirals inward. Into the caverns, into the snow, into the darkness. And there, deep inside the tracks and tunnels, something waits. Something with no name. You're not ready to see it. Not yet. But you will. You back away from the Matterhorn, but the pull doesn't loosen. Not really. The mountain feels magnetic, like it's tugging at something just behind your rib cage. Still, you turn your body toward Fantasyland. Try to shake the weight of it. Fantasyland is supposed to be safe. Sweet. storybooks and soft music. But you know better now. You know how illusions are kept alive sometimes at a cost. You pass the entrance to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. The facade is cheerful, that faux English whimsy, but this ride ends in hell, doesn't it? Quite literally. You've always thought it strange, a children's ride that ends with fire demons, a courtroom, and a train that kills you. And maybe that was a warning. One night in the 1980s, after the park had closed, a janitor was doing routine cleaning inside Mr. Toad. He made it halfway through the ride before his walkie crackled and cut out completely. He stopped in the tunnel, right at the scene with the glowing red eyes. He tried to turn back. The ride started up. No operator, no power surge, just movement. The lights stayed off, but the cars began to roll on their own. Slow at first, then faster. He dove into a maintenance alcove and stayed there, back pressed against the wall until morning. When the team arrived and checked the systems, they found no record of power to the track. No logs of movement, no failures. The technician quit that week. The story faded. But cast members still refused to clean that tunnel alone. And the ride, it still ends in hell. Maybe it always did. You walk past the Mad Tea Party now, the spinning teacups. It's eerie in its own way. So bright, so symmetrical. But your eyes drift to the shadows beyond the ride. The edge of the garden, the wrought iron fencing, and topiary animals, and the story that took place there. It's 1978. A young man climbs over a small barrier and into the landscaping. It's late. The ride's closed. He's with friends. He wants a picture beside the Dormouse statue, nestled in a hedge near the edge of the Alice in Wonderland ride. But he missteps, slides, and lands face first on a metal spike. It was part of the support structure, never meant to be accessed by guests. Sharp, rusted, hidden beneath decorative vines. He doesn't scream, not at first, just gasps. Blood soaks the ivy. His friends scream for help, but the area is secluded. It takes time, too much time. By the time security arrives, he's silent, pale, his body tangled in the roots like something planted. They removed the spike, covered the ground with smooth concrete. But people still trip in that spot. Their shoes catch on nothing. Some say they feel the ground shift like it's trying to pull them under. You walk on back past the King Arthur Carousel. This time the horses don't move, but one stares at you. Just one. Eyes too glassy, smile too wide. You don't blink. You just keep walking. You're heading toward Snow White's Enchanted Wish now, once called Snow White's Scary Adventures, and for good reason. The ride is known for its sharp turns, its sudden darkness, its shadows, and its deaths. Not well-known ones, not official ones, but whispered. One version tells of a young woman riding alone late in the day. When the ride ended, the car came back empty. They searched the whole track, found nothing. Security footage glitched, static at the exact moment her car passed into the forest scene, then perfect again afterward. She was never found. Another version says she reappeared 2 days later, wandering Fantasyland in the same clothes, barefoot, silent. Security tried to stop her. She vanished into the crowd. Urban legend, maybe, but the tunnel where her car disappeared is colder than the rest. Cast members joke it's the Snow White shortcut. But no one rides that scene alone anymore, not even for testing. You glance toward it now, and for a split second, you think you see movement. A silhouette behind the trees. Long hair, pale face, but it's gone when you blink. You don't investigate. Instead, you head to the back of Fantasyland, toward the storybook land canal boats again. The water reflects the moonlight in strange ways, like it's alive. Breathing, changing. The boats are docked, still. But there's a bench here, a small one where guests wait. And there's a story about this bench. Late one night, a man sat here after closing, alone. Security approached thinking he was a straggler. But when they spoke to him, he didn't respond. Just stared at the water. Whispered something they couldn't hear. When they reached to tap his shoulder, he fell sideways. Dead. Massive heart attack. No ID, no phone. Just a wristwatch that had stopped exactly 5 minutes earlier. The bench was moved, replaced. But the story stayed. And sometimes late at night, cast members swear they see someone sitting here, even when it's empty, especially when it's empty. You stand now, the breeze brushing your face, the scent of chlorinated water drifting past. Everything feels wrong and calm at the same time. A strange peace, a knowing stillness. And it's here on the edge of Fantasyland where you remember something else. It wasn't a ride. It wasn't even a death. It was a letter. In the early 2000s, a custodial cast member found a note tucked under the door of the old Fantasyland theater. It was handwritten, folded neatly, left in an envelope with no name. It read, "This place holds us, not just the good parts, all of it. The dreams and the falls, the magic and the cost. Please remember us." The handwriting was clean, slanted, feminine. They turned it into lost and found. No one ever claimed it. You look down at your feet, wondering how many others have stood here. Wondering what's buried beneath the concrete. Bones, memories, echoes. And then you look up and realize you're facing the mountain again. Matterhorn. Always the Matterhorn. It's time. You face it now. The Matterhorn. The jagged white peak that looms over Fantasyland like a fractured tooth, its silhouette rough and uneven against the dim sky. You've circled it for hours, passed it again and again, and now you understand why. It's the center, not just of the park, but of something else. Something that's been watching, gathering, pulling. You step toward it. The air grows colder, sharper. You breathe in and feel your chest tighten, not from fear, but pressure. Like walking up a mountain even though your feet are still flat on pavement. The ride's entrance is gated off, but you find a path behind the structure. A maintenance trail, unused by guests. The gravel crunches beneath your shoes. There's no music here. No fake yodeling or alpine cheer. Just silence. And the soft hum of something mechanical deep in the mountain's belly. Something still running. You pause in front of a narrow access door, unmarked except for a small silver lockbox. You're not supposed to be here, but neither were the others. You remember Dolly. Her name always comes back first. Dolly Young. She boarded the Matterhorn like anyone else. A thrill seeker. A mother. Just another rider. But halfway through, something happened. Some said she stood up. Others said her seatbelt was faulty. What is known is that she fell, slipped from her bobsled. The ride didn't stop, not right away. She was crushed beneath the vehicle, struck again by another car, and found later by workers silent, cold, alone in a narrow, hidden tunnel. They renamed the section where she died Dolly's Dip. Not on the map, not official, but every cast member knows where it is, and they hate walking through it. Maintenance workers say their radios crackle there. Flashlights die. One technician swears he saw someone crouched in the tunnel, once dark hair, bare feet. She turned her head just slightly, and then vanished. Another said he heard breathing, just behind him, for the entire walk through. But when he turned to confront it, there was no one there, not even tracks in the dust. You step away from the door. You don't need to go inside. You're already inside enough. The mountain is awake even when the ride sleeps. You walk around the perimeter slow and cautious, like the ground might give way. You think of all the times you rode this thing without knowing what lay beneath. But Dolly wasn't the only one. In 1964, a 15-year-old boy named Mark Maples stood up during the ride's descent. He was thrown, landed on the track, died of his injuries days later. The Matterhorn was only 5 years old then, and already had blood in its foundation. They installed seatbelts later, improved restraints, but still, the ride took another. In 1989, a man named Greg was decapitated, a cast member reportedly riding after hours. His body was found the next morning. They never explained how it happened, just that it did. 3 deaths, all different, all violent, and yet the ride remains, because it's iconic, beloved, nostalgic. But at night, it's none of those things. It's a tomb, a monument to silence. You sit on a nearby bench hidden between pine trees and old crates. You close your eyes for a moment. Try to gather yourself. But something keeps your senses wide open. You realize suddenly that even when you blink, you see the mountain. Its angles, its voids. It's imprinted on you now. You open your eyes, and for a moment the world tilts. Like you're moving. Like you're on the ride, dipping through snowy caves and sudden drops. And then it stops, and you're still on the bench. But something's different. The lights on the Matterhorn flicker just once, like a dying breath. And then faintly you hear it. A laugh, soft, female, familiar. Not cheerful, not cruel, just there. You rise, no longer sure what's following you and what you're following, because something's changed. The park feels tighter now, the walkways narrower, like the buildings are leaning in. You check the sky, no stars, just a solid wall of gray, like even the sky is hiding. You walk past the old Fantasyland Skyway station, boarded up for decades now, forgotten. But it still stands, high above near the mountain's flank. They say someone died here too, a cast member who fell from the platform while retrieving a dropped item, that the beams creaked the next day, that no one would enter again without looking down first. It's sealed now, but the energy remains. You step back onto the main path and realize something unnerving. You haven't seen your reflection in a while. Not in the glass windows of the shops, not in the puddles near the garden, not in the chrome railings of Tomorrowland. It's like the park has erased you, or absorbed you. You walk, you listen, you feel. And what you feel now is this: you are not a visitor anymore. You are part of it. Every death, every echo, every shadow, they don't just belong to Disneyland. They belong inside it, inside the walls, the tunnels, the tracks, and you've followed them long enough to be recognized. The park sees you now, and it's remembering. You glance behind you. No one. You look ahead. Still no one. And yet, you're not alone. You haven't been for some time. The Matterhorn stands tall behind you, quiet again. Its windows empty, its tunnels dark. But deep in its center something shifts. A breath, a whisper, a promise. It's not done. And neither are you. You keep walking, but the ground feels different now. Softer. Like it's not entirely solid beneath your feet. As if you're walking on something that's been walked on too many times. Something worn thin. The Matterhorn fades behind you, though you can still feel it in the back of your mind, like a hand on your shoulder that never lifts. You drift toward the center of the park again. But nothing feels central anymore. Every path leads to the edge. Every direction points inward. You pause in front of it's a small world. You didn't mean to come here. But here you are. The facade glows white and gold lights twinkling like teeth. During the day, this ride is joyful. Repetitive, sure, but harmless. At night, though, it's different. The music doesn't play. The boats don't move. But the dolls, they still watch. You step into the queue and feel it immediately, that strange tug of imbalance. Like the world has tilted a few degrees left. The hedges around the path feel too tall. The air smells too sweet, like sugar left out too long. You reach the loading bay and stare at the still water. A black ribbon leading into the dark. You remember what people say, that the dolls move when no one's looking, that they shift ever so slightly during maintenance. One night a worker shut down the ride, walked the track, and swore he saw a figure out of place. Not one, the animatronics. A child-sized shadow near the Polynesian section, crouched, watching. When he turned his light toward it, it darted behind the bamboo set. He followed. Nothing there. When he returned to his cart, one of the dolls was missing a hand. They never found it. Another time during a power outage, a group of cast members had to walk evac guests out by flashlight. The moment the lights cut, the music didn't stop. It got louder. They carried people out as fast as they could. But one guest, an older woman, whispered all the way down the exit ramp. "They're singing for someone else now," she said. She didn't blink once. You take a breath and turn away from the ride. Your footsteps carry you past Toontown, again past the railroad, and down a service path behind the Fantasyland Theater. You're not supposed to be here, but that hasn't stopped you yet. You remember hearing about this path, how it leads to a small gate tucked behind the show buildings, how it loops around to an old break area once used by costumed characters. You find the gate. It's unlocked. The air inside is still. The pavement cracked. And at the center of the courtyard, a bench. The same bench mentioned in that letter you heard about. The one that said, "This place holds us." Not just the good parts, all of it. You approach the bench and sit. There's nothing extraordinary about it, until you look closer. At the back near one of the bolts, a word has been scratched into the wood. Not carved, not burned, just scratched. as if by fingernail. Stay. You don't. You stand and keep walking. The path leads you into the backstage service area that parallels Main Street. You see the backside buildings, the cast-only signs, the emergency access doors, and something else. A staircase. Narrow, leading underground. You've heard of the Utilidor's Disney World system of underground tunnels, but Disneyland isn't supposed to have them. Not officially. Just a few scattered maintenance corridors, supply hallways, pipe systems. But this feels different. This goes down. You hesitate at the top step, but something inside you whispers, you're already this far. So you descend. The light flickers with every third step. The temperature drops. You reach a hallway. Narrow, concrete, industrial. Pipes line the ceiling. A buzzing light hums overhead. You walk. Doors line the left side, numbered but not labeled. 1A, 1B, 1C. You reach 1F. It's open. Inside is a control room. Dusty, old, a desk, a row of monitors that are clearly disconnected, except for one. It flickers. You step closer and see what it's showing. Not live feed. Footage. From the 1980s, judging by the quality. Security cam angle. You see Main Street black and white. Cast members in vintage uniforms. And in the center of the frame, a child. Alone, standing beneath the partner's statue. The cast members don't seem to see him. He doesn't move. The screen cuts to static. Then another feed, Fantasyland, same era, same child, still not moving. You back away. The monitor shuts off on its own. You leave the room without looking back. Because if you do, you're not sure what you'll see. You walk faster now. The hallway narrows like it's folding in on itself. You pass a second staircase. Then a door marked exit, but with no knob. You push. It opens into daylight. Except it's not daylight. It's the center of the park again. Main Street. But empty. And wrong. The colors are slightly off. The buildings lean subtly inward. The sky isn't blue. It's just pale. You walk down the middle of the street, your shoes echoing louder than they should. You pass the firehouse. The lamp in the window flickers like a heartbeat. You pass the Emporium, the Penny Arcade, the Candy Palace. All closed, all watching. And then you reach the flagpole. Something is sitting at its base. A plush Mickey doll, old, weathered. Its eyes are missing. And tucked beneath its arm is a folded paper. You pick it up, same handwriting. You came this far. You heard us. You saw the cracks. Now you decide. The paper falls from your fingers, and the lights on Main Street dim, just slightly, but enough to notice. And then far in the distance you hear it. A ride starting up. Just one. The sound of machinery gears and track clacking into motion. Coming from behind you. Coming from the mountain. You freeze. The sound behind you is unmistakable. The slow, rhythmic clatter of chain-lift gears engaging. A roller coaster beginning its climb. Metal pulling metal. But the park is closed. There should be no movement, no power to the tracks, nothing to ride. You turn. Matterhorn. again. The sound is coming from inside the mountain. You can hear the lift engaging even though no bobsleds are on the track. At least, none that should be. You know you shouldn't move toward it. You know the rules of dreams and haunted places never go back, never answer when they call. But the call isn't coming from a voice. It's coming from memory. From every whisper you've heard tonight. From every name, every shadow. You walk back across the empty hub, past the statue. Walt and Mickey still stand there, but the sky above them has darkened into a strange, unmoving twilight. Not night, not day, just static. You pass Fantasyland, the rides all still and cold. The music boxes of children's songs wound down. The carousel horses drooping like they've grown tired of smiling. You reach the base of the Matterhorn, and the air changes again. The air here hums. You feel it in your molars, in your fingertips, in the arches of your feet. Like a generator underground. Like something awakening. The gates to the ride are open now. Not wide. Just slightly ajar. Like they're expecting you. You don't question why the locks are gone. You don't ask why the safety lights are on. You step inside. The queue is silent, the rope lines sagging the metal rails cold. You walk through the caves, the alpine murals faded under the emergency lights. You hear dripping water, and far in the distance the mechanical grind of something heavy moving uphill. You reach the loading bay, and there it is. A single bobsled resting on the track, lit from above by a flickering maintenance bulb. You step closer, and you realize there's already someone in the back seat. You can't see their face, just their silhouette. Still, waiting. Your body freezes not in fear, but in decision. You could walk away, you could leave, but you don't. Because deep down you understand now. You've become part of the story. You climb into the front seat. The bobsled lurches forward immediately. No operator, no safety check. The chain lift engages, and you're pulled up into the belly of the mountain. The sound is deafening. Metal clanking, rock groaning, air rushing. You expect the Yeti animatronic. You remember it from past rides, snarling and mechanical. But when you pass his cave, he's not there. Just an empty spotlight and wet footprints. The bobsled speeds up. Sharp turn, tunnel, sudden drop. Your breath catches. You pass the dip, Dolly's dip, and feel it. A blast of cold, a pressure on your chest, like someone seated on your ribs. You don't scream. You don't even blink. You know better. And then the lights go out completely. The bobsled keeps moving. No tracks, no sound. Just darkness and the cold. You don't know how long you ride. Minutes, hours. There's no end. Just the sensation of movement. Weightlessness, speed. The pressure of something sitting behind you. Breathing slow and raspy. You feel a hand graze the back of your neck. Not aggressive, just curious. And then light. Sudden. A spotlight like a stage cue clicks on ahead. You're no longer inside the Matterhorn. You're outside. Somewhere else entirely. The bobsled comes to a halt. You step out, knees shaky, and look around. You're in the middle of Disneyland, but not the one you know. Everything is off. The colors are wrong. The buildings are too tall. The windows have no glass. The castle is warped like it was drawn from memory instead of blueprint. And there's no one. Not a single person. Just a row of ride vehicles all lined up on Main Street. A jungle cruise boat. A people mover car. A doom buggy. A teacup. Each one occupied. You walk past them slowly, and you realize they're all filled with people. Not moving, eyes closed, hands folded neatly in their laps. Some are cast members, some are guests, all of them still. Sleeping, number remembering, waiting. The doom buggy nearest you creaks slightly as you pass. Its rider exhales. You don't stop walking, not until you reach the firehouse. The lamp is still in the window, glowing. You step inside. It's warm, dim, cozy. A small apartment barely larger than a studio. The furniture is simple, the decor vintage. And at the desk sits a man. You don't see his face, just his shape. He turns slightly but doesn't speak. He lifts one hand, points to the chair across from him. You sit. The silence stretches. Then he lifts something from the desk, an old guide map, yellowed with age. He unfolds it slowly and places it between you. But this map isn't for guests. It doesn't show the parade route, or the restaurants, or the restrooms. It shows other things, places you've never seen, rooms with no doors, tunnels with no stairs, rides that don't exist anymore. And one more thing, a list. Names, dates, locations, accidents, incidents, unexplained disappearances, and at the very bottom, a line that's not filled in. A blank space waiting. He slides the map toward you and taps the empty line, then looks up. You still don't see his face, but you feel the question. You already know the answer. You reach for the pen. You don't sign the map, not yet. Your fingers hover over the pen, but something inside you resists. Some ancient thread of instinct still tugging at your spine. You glance down at the list again, at all the names and places and years. Some you remember, some you don't. Some haven't happened yet. You feel the weight of the man's gaze on you, though you still can't see his face. Just the vague outline. Just the silhouette of someone who has been here too long. He doesn't speak. He doesn't move. Just waits. You slowly close the guide map and place it back on the desk. The silence lingers like fog, thick and still. Finally, the man nods. Once. Approving or understanding, you can't tell. You stand and leave the room. The door closes behind you, though you don't hear it shut. You're back outside. But it's not morning. It's not night either. The sky is a deep, dull gray like the color of static before a storm. The park is unchanged and yet completely different. Every sign is blank. Every window is dark. Even the flowers in the gardens seem colorless now. You walk past the shops, the closed doors, the silent facades. There's no music, no narration, no announcements. Just the soft sound of your footsteps and the distant hum of a ride operating in the background. Still that one. The same one that keeps turning on even when the park is asleep. You know which one it is. You follow the sound. Back to the Matterhorn. Again. It's open now. Wide open. Floodlights inside. a constant low rumble, a whine of machinery. You step back into the loading bay, though it's not the same loading bay from before. Everything's changed again. The walls are taller, the track's steeper. The air is frigid now, real cold, like winter cold, like alpine cold. And there are people here, dozens of them, all in line, silent, still, eyes closed. Their clothes are old, out of fashion. You see a woman in a 1950s dress, a man in bell-bottoms, a child clutching a souvenir cup from the 80s. They don't move, not even to breathe. You walk past them, to the front of the line. No one stops you. The ride vehicle is waiting, empty. This time you don't get in. You just stand there and watch the mountain breathe. Because it is breathing. The sound isn't mechanical anymore. It's organic, wet, slow. You hear groaning rocks, shifting tracks, and beneath all of it, heartbeat. You take a step back, another, and then movement. From inside the tunnel, someone or something is crawling out of the dark. Slowly. You turn and walk away. Not running, just steady, measured, because now you understand. The park doesn't want you to run. It wants you to remember. You pass through the backstage doors again and find yourself in a hallway you don't recognize. It's narrower than the others, lit by a single red bulb. You follow it without knowing why. At the end is a door, black, no handle. It opens on its own. And inside a room lined with screens, dozens of them. Old CRT monitors, stacked and buzzing, each one showing a different part of the park. Not live footage, at least not anymore. You see Pirates in 1971, a man jumps from the boat. You see Space Mountain in 1987. A seatbelt unbuckles on its own. You see Small World in 2003. A doll blinks after the lights go out. And then you see something that makes you stop breathing. You, standing at the Matterhorn loading bay. Tonight. Right now. You blink. The screen changes. Another angle, Main Street. You're walking again. A third screen, Tomorrowland. You're turning a corner. The screens begin to stutter. Each one now showing you, in different places, all at once. Moving, watching, waiting. You step back and all the monitors go dark at the same time. Complete silence. And then a single screen turns back on, the one in the middle. It shows the firehouse apartment. The lamp is off, and you know what that means. You leave the room before the darkness can catch up. You exit into the alley behind Frontierland. The sky has shifted again. Black now, no stars, no wind. Just gravity heavy and full. You pass by the Golden Horseshoe, the saloon lights flickering. Then by Big Thunder Mountain, where the rocks seem to pulse with a low hum, like an earthquake waiting for permission. You don't stop. You keep walking. And eventually you reach the back of the park, where the berm ends. Where the railroad wraps around like a boundary line between fantasy and whatever lies beyond. There's a tunnel here, one used by cast members. You've never seen it from this angle. It's open now. You enter. It smells of rust and pine and something faintly sweet like candied almonds long gone stale. The tunnel is long, longer than it should be. You keep walking, and eventually it opens into a circular room. Round, plain, concrete walls, and at the center, a carousel horse. Old, stripped of paint. Its eyes are gone, just sockets. It doesn't move. But you get the feeling it used to. You approach it, slowly. There's something carved into the base of the platform, not etched, not scratched, carved deep. We remember, your throat goes dry. You touch the horse's mane, splintered wood beneath your fingertips. And then faintly, from the tunnel behind you, you hear the carousel music begin to play. But the melody's wrong, out of tune, out of time. Too slow, too warped. Like it's been looping for too long without anyone listening. You turn and leave the room. The music follows you. You walk faster now, but the carousel music drags behind you like a shadow, never louder, never closer, just present. Like a lullaby from something that forgot how to sleep. The tunnel walls curve as you move, leading you upward without you realizing. Your legs ache. The air feels thinner. You're no longer underground. When you emerge, you're in Tomorrowland again. But not the Tomorrowland you remember. It's been aged. The neon is flickering. The signs are rusted. The paint is faded. Every building looks like it's been abandoned for decades. The Star Trader windows are boarded up. The Astro Orbiter is stuck mid-spin, its rockets dangling like broken limbs. The air smells of ozone and burnt plastic. You step carefully over cracked pavement and find yourself in front of what used to be Space Mountain. But the name is gone now, just a blank concrete dome scorched at the top like something tried to burn its way out. You hear a sound inside. Not machinery, not screaming, breathing, something huge, something alone. You back away. The doors to the ride are open, just slightly, and you swear the darkness inside is alive. You don't go in. You've been pulled enough times. You know when to stop. Instead, you move past the dome around the curve of the platform and into a corridor you don't remember existing. It leads to a viewing deck elevated overlooking the park. The entire landscape stretches before you now. But it's all wrong. The castle is cracked down the middle. Main Street is flooded in faint red light. Fantasyland is pulsing buildings warping in and out of proportion, like a cartoon glitching in real time. And the Matterhorn, it's taller. It rises above everything like a spire, a fang, its peak invisible in the dark sky. You stare at it for too long. And then the lights go out again. All of them. In an instant. The hum dies. The music stops. And the silence returns. But it's a new kind of silence now. Not empty. Anticipating. Like the whole park is holding its breath. You wait. A beat. Two. And then across the rooftops you see them. Figures, dozens, all dressed in cast member costumes from every era 1955 to now, standing on rooftops, perched on ledges, hands at their sides, heads tilted upward, looking not at you but above you. You follow their gaze, and there it is, the sky, open, and at its center a single ride vehicle. Spinning slowly, hovering mid-air. Impossible. It's a doom buggy from Haunted Mansion, and inside it, a person. Still, backlit by nothing, hands folded, like all the others you've seen tonight. Then the buggy begins to descend. silently, gracefully, downward, toward the hub, toward you. The cast members on the rooftops don't move. They just vanish one by one, flickering like lights. You're alone again before the buggy touches the ground. And then it does. The vehicle comes to rest in front of you, empty, waiting, not inviting, just present. You don't move, and that's when you feel it. Behind you. A warmth, like breath. You turn slowly and see her, Dolly, standing beneath the shadow of the dome, arms at her sides, dressed tattered hair floating as if suspended in slow water. Her face is calm, not angry, not sad, just waiting. She tilts her head and steps back, vanishing into the building. You turn back to the doom buggy. It's gone. Replaced now by a skyway gondola, spinning, empty, no longer hovering, just sitting still on cracked concrete. You step forward, and it begins to rock slightly. But then you see something carved on the side, scratched in haphazard letters. They left us here. A chill climbs your spine, not from fear, but from knowing it's true. They did. The stories, the deaths, the memories. None of them left. They were just covered up, smoothed over, re-themed, repainted, rewritten, but not removed. Nothing is ever truly removed here. Not in this place, not in Disneyland. You leave the gondola behind and walk down the slope of the platform. You're heading back toward the center now, drawn in. Gravity at work. You pass closed doors, flickering screens, signs that no longer make sense. Tomorrow's world. Yesterday. Please remain seated. Forever. And the last one, guests with no exit plans proceed left. You proceed left, because of course you do, and suddenly you're in Adventureland. But it's flooded. Not with water, with vines. Everything has overgrown. The tiki room is cracked and leaning. The Jungle Cruise boats are submerged in moss. The air smells thick, wet wood, old rope, mildew, and rust. And you see something else, hands, reaching from beneath the water. Just fingers, dozens of them, unmoving. You don't stop to look. You pass Indiana Jones, the temple gates chained shut, something pacing inside, slow and heavy like a predator with too much time. You pass the bazaar where the stuffed animals all have one eye missing. You pass Tarzan's treehouse, empty, creaking in windless air. And finally, you reach the bridge, the one that crosses back to the hub. And on the bridge, the child. The same child from the footage, from the monitor, standing alone, looking at you. Now you can see the face. And you realize it's your face. Not exactly. Just enough. Eyes too wide. Smile too fixed. And when you blink, the child is gone. You step onto the bridge, and the park opens before you again. But now it's quiet for a reason. Now it's waiting. For the end of your loop. You stand at the center of the hub now. The place where all the lands meet, where everything converges, the place where every map begins and ends. You realize now it's not just a circle of pathways, it's a compass, a clock, a ritual, The park doesn't spiral outward, it spirals inward, and you're at the eye. Around you, the lands shimmer like mirages. Fantasyland shifts. Tomorrowland bends. Adventureland breathes. Frontierland waits. Main Street watches. And above it all, the castle looms. Different now. Its spires cracked. Its drawbridge sunken. The banners torn and colorless. But the gate is open, wide, welcoming. You cross the bridge. No music plays. Just the crunch of your footsteps. You step into the tunnel beneath the castle. The mural is gone. The lights are dim. The air is heavy. When you emerge on the other side, it's not Fantasyland that greets you. It's the courtyard again. The one with the carousel horse. But now it's spinning. Alone. Lights strobing. Music broken. The horse rising and falling without rhythm. You walk past it, and the ground beneath you begins to change. No longer pavement. Carpet. Red and gold. You're in a hallway now. A long one. Velvet wallpaper. Gilded frames. And in each frame, reflections of the park. Not photographs. Moments. A man falling from the monorail. A boy clinging to a raft. A woman crumpled beneath the people mover track. A child looking back at you from the Small World Canal. All still. All quiet. But they blink, you move forward. At the end of the hallway is a turnstile. Not at the entrance. At the exit. But the exit is a mirror. A tall, gold-framed mirror with no reflection. Just light. Pale. Waiting. You step toward it. But just before you pass through, you feel it. A tug. From behind. You turn. And they're all there. The guests. The cast members. The janitors. The performers. The kids. The families. The faces from every ride, every story, every accident. Lined up. Not threatening. Just waiting. Some of them nod. Others smile. One or two raise their hands in farewell. And you finally understand. They don't want to leave. Not really. They never did. Because here in this strange after-image of Disneyland, they are remembered. Here they are a part of the story forever. And so are you. You face the mirror again and step through. There is no flash of light. No twist of sound, just a gentle warmth, like stepping into sleep. And the moment your foot touches down, you hear it. The music, faint, distant. It's the park opening for a new day. Somewhere in the version of the world where the sun still rises and people still smile without knowing why the turnstiles click and Main Street fills with footsteps again. But here you rest. You're part of the quiet now, of the stories behind the stories, of the rides that never stop, the lights that never go out, and the ghosts that never leave. You feel your eyes close, not from fear, but from peace, and then stillness.